When others are in need, why do some feel it necessary to answer the call? After Russia's barbaric full invasion in 2022, it was clear Ukraine was in need. Good people of the world pulled together to help them defend their freedom. Against all odds, Ukrainians expelled the invaders from most of their territory. But what Russia could not have, it sought to destroy. In the summer of 2023, the Russians blew up Ukraine's Kakhovka Dam, flooding homes, villages, and farmland in a destructive eco-terrorism event of historical proportions.
Another flooded house.
Alas, by then, surprisingly few noticed as Russian propaganda began to find fertile ground. Streams of volunteers had withered to a trickle, and screams of outrage turned to whiny whimpers of doltish complacency. But not everyone. Humanitarians Hymie Dunn and Cary answered the call. They joined forces with a community of give-a-dammers to help the displaced, despairing, and devastated. I had the honor of tagging along, sharing good times and bad, some scary, some sad. Despite the misery of our mission, it was one of the most memorable trips of my life. So let's all answer the call and get in the van. It's time for My Summer in Ukraine, Chapter 2. Travel. For some, it's a luxurious escape, or maybe an adrenaline-filled adventure. But if you're like me, it's a precious opportunity to discover and to give back. It's time to get real. It's time to get raw. It's time for RawTravel.
This just says massive air alert.
This visit was just my second to Ukraine since Russia's 2022 full invasion. I was fortunate to be riding along with DIY humanitarians Hymie Dunn and Cary. Together, we'd travel in Hymie's crowd-funded and, yes, sometimes smelly van of humanity. We'd drive from Kiev to Odesa, then perilously close to the front in the beleaguered Kherson City, and finally to Mykolaiv. Hymie and Mark have made this run before, and they quickly showed me the ropes.
Time to hit the WOG.
By now, a stop at the WOG for gas and coffee was a van tradition, but WOG dogs were Mark's specialty.
This thing's got bacon on it. There's some corn on there. Multiple sauces.
Upon arrival in Odesa, we were greeted by an all-too-familiar friend. Massive air alert. Odesa's location on the Black Sea coast means it's an ideal vacation spot, usually.
Weather's just perfect. Too bad there's a war going on.
Indeed, the war's presence was never far at hand. But when Russia exploded the Kakhovka Reservoir, water flowed over the banks of the Dnipro River, and internally displaced refugees flowed into Odesa. Hymie came to Ukraine with a van load of supplies, but we needed more.
Epicenter.
The aptly named Epicenter store was our main supply point for purchasing water, food, and needed items for places like Odesa's Way Home Foundation. Like many established charities here, their mission had expanded. They must also now help internally displaced refugee families. Their sister organization, Aurora House, has been tasked with helping displaced single mothers and their children. Hymie brought donated laptops for the administrators and cash for refugees.
War. There are a lot of war widows here in this shelter, and the people who've come from Kherson obviously have no possessions at all. They lost everything in the flood, so that's why I want to be particularly generous to this shelter.
Understood.
Since families would have to start all over, items such as kitchen supplies were a requested commodity. But the most heartwarming item was Mark's stash of Knitting Without Borders teddy bears.
Made with love.
War completely disrupted schools in Odesa, but Way Home is trying to fill the gaps. Disrupted learning will last a lifetime, as will the trauma. The mothers from Russian-occupied areas told tales of abuse at the hands of Russian soldiers. Many of their husbands were tortured and killed. Food shelves were empty, and they'd had no health care for months. Out of respect for their trauma, I did not film their emotional testimony.
It's shocking when you hear that kind of first-hand story.
Mark and Hymie's donations were, of course, greatly appreciated, but the needs were endless.
There's so much to do, and we're only 2 people with, people moving in and out of the team, and so it's just going to be a never-ending job. But as far as us, I'm happy with what we did here.
We are just immensely grateful for everybody for supporting us, because if they feel they can trust us to spend that money responsibly and that they see an end result, that they see they're actually making a positive, real impact, really touching people's lives, that's so important. So thank you.
Shopping.
It was time to restock the van and head to Kherson, Ukraine, where flooding had devastated surrounding towns and villages. Kherson's pre-war vitality was a memory. It was now a ghost town. Though recently liberated, Russians were just across the river and shelled the city daily. To prepare, we put on body armor, and Mark gave us a quick lesson in tourniquet application.
You're going to put this on. This is called the windlass. You start cranking this windlass down, boom, 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 until the bleeding stops.
Okay.
Our first stop was the local Baptist church, where we dropped off supplies and met Tanya, a homegrown photographer and volunteer.
Give us the tours? Okay.
The church basement served as a shelter for up to 500 neighbors during the occupation. Now it was being converted to guest quarters for flood cleanup volunteers, catching a much-deserved rest.
Imagine 500 people being down there.
But as Russia has demonstrated time and again, neither churches, schools, nor apartments are safe.
Do you know how much misery Russia has caused? Oh my God. What's going on over there?
I briefly left the relative sanctuary of the church to see a recently bombed apartment building nearby.
This is not a military target. This is civilian. They were occupied, then the flooding, and now the constant bombing. It's just one miserable thing after another.
We wanted to visit the small village of Oleksandrivka, about an hour outside of Kherson City. Besides the smell of flooding, the village is routinely bombed and the school was destroyed. Mark, Hymie, and Tanya planned to see about fundraising to build a mobile library for the kids. But the drive over, in full view of Russian forces, would be risky.
So over there, Russians? Yeah, like 5 kilometers.
We'd need permission to continue through several Ukrainian checkpoints.
Yeah, is that okay?
Alas, we were turned away. Ukrainian security deemed it too dangerous to visit that day. I was both disappointed and relieved, but Tanya offered to show us downtown Kherson City, once a thriving area of coffee shops and parks, now desolate. Despite artillery rumbling nearby, I ambled out of the van to do what I came to do.
Yeah, in Kyiv, I try to make money and to work. And here I volunteer and serve people.
Okay. That's why you came back to Kherson to help
Yeah.
the neighbors?
Yes.
For Tanya, the desolation was disquieting.
My city is not big, but there's always like some moving. But when you see that it is always noise like this, and it is a lot of destruction and no people, like no hope, you know.
As for me, it was the unfamiliar sound of shelling that had me unsettled.
And right now we hear shelling in the background, pretty loud. Does that not concern you at all? Or are you used to it by now?
Unfortunately, I used to it by now because you can hear it every day. I think every hour. And maybe at first day it is bothering you, but step by step, it becomes okay for you. It's like your routine, unfortunately.
So, because I'm nervous. I'm not gonna lie.
I understand you, and it's okay.
This park was once abuzz with activity.
It's like a little square, and there are park there, and it is bombed also.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Destroyed.
and it's also like, yeah, you can see a lot of stuff like this.
Some in the U.S. suggest we listen to what Putin has to say.
We can show what Putin did, so I don't know if we need to say to hear what he said. I think we can see everything he wants to say like this.
Tanya is circumspect about the future of her beloved Kherson.
At first, I was full of optimistic, and after this disaster was water from the Kakhovska gas, I understand that it will be so hard to do something here, and I don't know. What I know for sure that I will try to do everything that I can.
Mortars were getting closer. It was time to leave. Alas, we got a genuine taste of daily life in Kherson while driving to Mykolaiv.
That's too close, man. What the dude? Was that it? Bro? That's close. There was one that got way too close. Way too close.
Mykolaiv was just an hour away and had suffered mightily as well during the Russian occupation. But on this day, compared to Kherson, Mykolaiv was a relative sanctuary, and we all breathed a sigh of relief when we returned safely. Nonetheless, I was still processing my first day under bombardment.
Today was extremely intense. It's the air raid sirens. Heard those before, but never this close to the front. Real people are suffering, man. They have to go through this day in and day out, and I feel for them so much. This is horrible, man. Unnecessary.
Just a few hours in a frontline town had me rattled. Imagine living with this anxiety day in and day out.
Just brutal.
Answering the call can take a toll.
Yeah, videotaping me urinating.
No, but the audio's good.
After a night's rest, I recovered my optimistic demeanor, and we were all hopeful that our second day in Kherson, Ukraine, would be less stressful.
Yesterday was a little hairy, but yeah, hopefully we won't.
My first day was like baptism by fire. And when I saw these guys getting concerned, I got concerned.
That's the thing about it is they're not aiming at anything. They're just a bunch of drunk dudes sitting back there pulling the cables.
Just messing with everybody,
Yeah,
basically.
they're just
They got nothing better to do.
Nope, they're just
bored.
terrorizing the city.
All right, we better get rolling because our only air conditioning is the windows down and it's hot. So see you in a bit, hopefully.
Russian looting and senseless violence were evident.
No car dealerships, huh?
They're all looted by the Russians.
Stole them up.
Yep. Stole everything.
Before retreating, Russians needlessly and spitefully killed rare fish species at a university.
They poured petrol into their aquarium, killed all these rare fish, and then they left.
And now these guys have to rebuild this. And some of these fish are very rare.
They poured gasoline in there just to watch them die.
Die.
Yeah.
So it just basically destroy and leave nothing
Exactly.
behind.
Exactly. And the guys were talking about how they stole their shovels, they stole all their laboratory equipment, they stole everything.
Support Kherson is a group comprised of dedicated locals who returned after Russia's retreat. They gathered clothing, medicine, food, and cleanup supplies for volunteers. After dropping off our donations, we reluctantly bid adieu to our brave new pals and returned to the church for yet another supply drop. The church is a gathering spot for residents and foreigners, and it's where I met a volunteer from my neck of the woods. Jersey is both his alias and his home state.
Right on.
Jersey heard the call loud and clear.
I have family who are from Eastern Europe. I just thought to myself, I think I'm going to do it. I'm here because these people deserve the space and time to decide what kind of future they actually want. And if Russia has its way, it'll be deprived of that.
Like others who've witnessed the brutality of Russian aggression, there's no love lost for this so-called special military operation.
It's just pure barbarism what Vladimir Putin is doing. He's the Adolf Hitler of our time, and that's no joke.
You don't want to veer too far off the road because this area is mined, heavily mined.
Okay. So right now, as we speak, we're on this tiny road. Each side is heavily mined, so we have to be careful. And it's made even more difficult because the roads are really, really bumpy, as you can tell. And also, when you meet traffic, you do have to pull over a little bit. So it's a little hairy because you don't want to pull over too far that hasn't been demined. So the Russians left a little gift for everybody, including humanitarians.
The flooding from the exploding Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine meant that Russian landmines were displaced, land was poisoned, and water was undrinkable. We had an opportunity to work with local chapters of the Red Cross to help install a large portable water tank so villagers could store and access safe drinking water. Despite floodwaters, the first village we visited miraculously still had electricity.
They've never had a laptop in this village before.
Really? Wow, and that's a brand new laptop.
Yes.
All right, let's go do it.
Yeah.
Hymie gifted the mayor's office one of her donated laptops. The next village was less fortunate.
We're walking along this village where the floodwaters just receded a few days ago. It smells really bad. Crops are ruined. A lot of the houses are uninhabitable. Not sure what's in the air, but it's not good. And, you know, this place wasn't wealthy to begin with.
We were invited to Valentina's house, which was devastated. Her daughter, Natalia, had returned home to help.
Ah, very nice, very nice. Yeah, good, good, good.
I could tell Valentina's house was once a lovely home. Now, it was an uninhabitable disaster.
So it came up even higher than this. It came up as high as this.
А це
Yeah.
і коври були, і тюлі, все, бух. Все, нічого нема. О, так от чому стояти. Глина, все погано було.
It's like 54 years of their life.
Все, 54 роки в місті хазяйнували і
You see that they had a really beautiful home.
54 years destroyed in just a matter of hours at the behest of an absurdly wealthy dictator.
Here's all their possessions.
Yet Valentina was unbowed.
And so,
хай живе Україна.
yes,
Oh.
Slava Ukraina.
Да слава Україні! Да, героям слава!
I'm with you.
Дождемося все одно, побідемо!
Despite Valentina's exuberant and defiant energy, the heartbreaking reality is that this village's homes are almost all beyond repair, and their land will be toxic for decades.
Another flooded house. God, it smells so bad. It's poison. Oh.
But answering the call requires action, so we scouted an ideal location for the water tank installation and got to work. Well, most of us. Despite the misery of our mission, it was a beautiful day. The kids were out on their bikes, and for a moment at least, war seemed far away.
It's hard to believe this country's at war when you're in a place like this. You get sucked into feeling the peace and the normalcy, and you're quickly reminded people are suffering.
Indeed, the calm serenity was merely a mirage.
just heard some artillery fire or maybe even a missile. It was a huge boom, and now I see smoke right over there. I hope everything's okay, but I don't know. Whoa! Hey! Nicely done. Bye-bye. 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 What do you say? Do побачення. До побачення. До побачення.